it's my pleasure to introduce Technology Leader and Cloud Evangelist John Chambers to deliver a Microsoft 365 A5 overview. John, please take it away.
All right, thank you, Mike. Yeah, I'm glad to spend some time with you this morning going over the Microsoft A5 license overview. Just a brief background about myself. I have been working in technology for a very long time, for a better part of 20 years. Started as a PC help desk, now to a manager of a modern workplace team that delivers a lot of these technologies we're going to talk about today. So thank you for spending some time. The Microsoft 365 A5 is a collaboration of over 100 different features that you're seeing fly on the screen right now that provide a robust productivity suite that has top-notch security. All of these capabilities work together to empower teachers and students to excel in the classroom. Okay. Over the next 30 minutes, we're going to talk about some of these key components of the A5 suite. Okay. And as Mike alluded to earlier, make sure you ask any questions when you think of them in the Q&A window, and we will cover them at the end of the session. So thank you. So the first component of the A5 suite I'll call is the productivity side. So that's the traditional Office 365 that everyone's heard a lot about over the years, you know. And the first thing we have is Exchange Online. Okay, what that gives your staff, your students, your teachers is a 100 gig mailbox with an unlimited archive. That's a lot of storage. Now that's great for a lot of organizations because they don't have to manage that storage on premise, and usually when you had your Exchange on premise, you limited the size of the mailbox traditionally. You also get what's called a litigation hold that will retain the data, and that will allow users to go in and manage the mailbox themselves. But if a user is under a litigation hold, that data, whether they've deleted it or not, is discoverable. And we're going to talk about e-discovery in a little bit. Okay. Another core function of Office 365 is SharePoint Online. This is a cloud-based service that helps organizations share and manage content, knowledge, and applications. By doing this, you're going to empower teamwork between your staff and your teachers and your students. It's going to allow them to quickly find information and then collaborate as well as a key function. And that's one thing you're going to find throughout the Office, the Microsoft 365 stack, is collaboration. It's a lot of the technologies work well together. Okay. Next core feature is OneDrive for Business. This is going to be a cloud storage for your staff and students. And traditionally you get 1 terabyte of storage. So that's a lot of storage for you can store, videos, homework assignments, whatever you need to do collateral. Teachers can store up all their presentation materials up in OneDrive that they can work on. And there's other places to store it as well, but this is a little segment just for that user. Okay. And then with that, you also get, a desktop sync client so that the data will be local to the machine. And there's also mobile device clients as well. So for your Androids and iOS devices, they can access this data from their mobile device. The next core feature workload is Teams, which that's the big thing that Microsoft has been talking about lately. It's going to allow a collaboration workspace between students, teachers, and staff. Some of the things you're going to get in it, you're going to get meetings. So, a teacher can have a meeting, a one-to-one meeting with students or students, or have a group meeting. Even the students can have a meeting together, maybe one of those clubs at your school. LS integration, so your school learning system, it can get integrated into Teams as well. With the meetings, your students will be able to screen share. And one of the things that's specific to education is, the teachers are going to have the ability to assign, track, and grade assignments all within the Teams application. So, you may have a system that does that today, but this could be a move to the Teams environment to help, maybe some cost savings, with reducing spend, because everyone likes to be conservative on their tax dollars for education. Then, one of the things you're going to get to with Teams is they're making a lot of inroads into the insights, into the students' engagement with, the teachers, between the students, and how they interact within the teams that are set up for the classes. And there's a lot more with Teams, and that just sort of touches the surface of Teams. The next thing is the Microsoft 365 apps. This is formerly known as Office or Office Pro Plus. So it's the traditional suite that gets installed on your desktop computer. Okay. With the A5 license, you get the next generation, latest and greatest. It's going to get updated every 6 months. You're going to get new features and functions. You'll continually get security updates like you did in the past. Along with this, there's, mobile versions of all the applications, and with the A5 license, you're able to edit those documents or those files with the mobile device, where, anyone can download them from the particular store for that device, but they're in a read-only mode. But with the A5 license, it turns it into a full function application. And as I alluded to before, you're always going to have the latest version of Office. So it's going to be sort of the last time you as an organization need to deploy Office, because it's just going to automatically update twice a year. Another core function is the Office ATP. So this is going to be your email security, but it extends a little bit beyond email, but this is a traditional thought process of it. A couple of things you're going to get, and ATP stands for Advanced Threat Protection. So one thing you're going to get is attachment scanning. So if emails get sent in with attachment, instead of traditionally just blocking them, now we can scan them real time and make sure they're safe, and if they're safe to get delivered to the end user. We'll have URL scanning. And the good thing about the URL scanning is it just extends beyond just email. So it's going to go into any documents stored in OneDrive or up in SharePoint or within Teams. So whenever a user clicks the link, it's going to scan it real time, and it's just not a one-time check. So every time that link is clicked, it's going to get checked real time. So if it's good today, we want to make sure it's good tomorrow as well. Okay. And then you're also going to get some advanced phishing protection to help protect your identities of not only your students and staff, but maybe your leadership within your school's organization. So no one spoofs the, principal's email, and then, because it's all about identity protection when you get to the cloud. The next function is DLP, or data loss prevention or protection. So this is the ability to protect data. So it's specific data. And there are a bunch of default policies that Microsoft has developed, around 100 of them, to allow you to comply with regulations around sensitive data information. So that could be, bank account information, social security, it could be student ID numbers, anything that's personal in nature. It's also financial as well. So maybe your accounting area, when they're sending out information, protect, the bank accounts of the school district. And one of the recent announcements Microsoft has made is they're extending this, the DLP protection into Teams chat and channel messages. Okay, that's included. It's being added the advanced compliance license, which is part of the overall A5 security, the A5 suite from Microsoft. So one of the things I mentioned earlier with Exchange Online was e-discovery. One of the things you get with the A5 license is the advanced e-discovery. So you're going to get the core e-discovery functions where you can and do your searches and hold data pertaining to a case. You can export that data into a consumable format that the messages, whatever the content is. But what the advanced e-discovery is, you're going to do that initial e-discovery search, and then you're going to get some machine learning and artificial intelligence, and it's going to go through and you're going to be able to cull that data down. So instead of handing over 10,000 items of information, maybe it's only going to be 5,000 or 3,000 items. And one of the new things is they're adding some advanced e-discovery functions to the team's content as well. So that's good. Another core feature of the Office 365 suite is Power BI. Okay, so this is dashboards is what Power BI is, but it's more than just dashboards. So it's a collection of software services, apps, and connectors that work together to turn unrelated sources of data into dashboards. They're visually immersive and interactive. So what I mean by interactive is you've got your dashboard and your school's leadership can, filter data to get views that they're specifically looking for. Maybe they want to see, like how many students are in a specific school, and with the visualized dashboards, they can isolate just that data, but then they can change it to the whole school district as well, or university. Another core feature of the Office 365 licensing is the My Analytics. So My Analytics is behavioral analytics based on what the user does and has insight into. So it's your users will get daily or weekly mails depending on how it's configured. It summarizes how they spend their time and work, and maybe make some suggestions on how to improve their time, maybe give some suggestions on focus times. That's something I find helpful for me because I'm a very busy individual, and it says, maybe you need to schedule some focus time that you can block off in your calendar. So that's good stuff. Okay. The next part of the A5 license for Microsoft 365 is the security side. So it's referred to as EMS, or Enterprise Mobility and Security. I'm going to talk about some of the high-level features that's available with it. So the first thing is the Azure AD Premium. So this is a grouping of a bunch of identity mechanisms, that you can do. So one of the things is you get with it is conditional access, which I'm going to talk about here in a second. But one of the other key things is SSO sign-on. So if you've got third-party, maybe learning software that your users and staff would have to sign into, you could set up Azure AD Premium to sign in as to handle that sign-in. So they only have to remember one login, and it's just handled in one spot. A couple of the other things you get with Azure AD Premium is, MFA. MFA is free these days, but it's how it's enforced or triggered is where you need some additional licensing, but you're covered for all the licensing with that. And MFA is a very easy way to protect your users' identity. Okay. Now, I did mention conditional access. I think it's a good thing to point out. It's part of the Azure AD Premium, but it's a very key to your cloud deployment. Okay. So what it does is it enables organizations to configure and fine-tune access policies around users, device, and location, and sometimes real risk information analytics. So what does that mean? So that gives you the ability to say, only, your students can only access, Microsoft 365 from a school issued device. You could say only, same for your staff, but, maybe if a staff member wants to access something from at home on their personal computer, you could do a session-based control that would only allow them to work within a browser, wouldn't be able to copy anything out of the browser. So it's very functional and robust options you can do. Okay. And another way to look at it is, think of your traditional on-premise firewall and what you allow access through. It's conditional access rules are that, but for the cloud services is how I like to refer to it as. Another core feature of the EMS suite is Intune for Education. Okay, Intune for Education is a cloud-based mobile device management service for schools. It'll help your teachers and students stay productive on classroom devices and keep school data secure. Okay. With Intune for Education, your organization can manage the desktop and mobile devices that students access the classroom data. So what that means is you can containerize the school's data on those devices if they're using personal devices, so that they can't copy and paste things, things out of their personal world into the educational world and vice versa. You have the ability to push down applications to the users as they need them. If as course their course schedule changes, they may need access to different applications. So when that happens, you can deploy them to those on those devices. Okay. And then you can also apply any school security policies to those devices that you deem necessary. Okay. Oh, oops. Sorry about that. A little click happy there. Sorry about that. So the next core feature of the EMS licensing is the Azure Information Protection. Okay. What this does is it gives you the ability to secure documents. So this is a wrapper around files. So it could be, PowerPoint, Word, Excel, any PDFs. So what that means is you can put controls around the file that when it's shared with this or maybe outside people, you can control what they can do. So you can just restrict users to just print. They can't copy data out. They can't give it off to their friend Joe, who's maybe at another school. Say, hey, look what we're working on. Just because they have the file doesn't mean they consume it. Only people that have rights to it can consume that file. And then also the other thing is, the rights can be revoked at any time. So the fact that I have the file and is able to use it today, I go tomorrow to consume it, my rights have been removed, I will not be able to utilize that file. Azure ATP is a cloud-based solution. Now, it used to be an on-premise solution, but now it's cloud-based that helps security operations teams protect on-premise identities and correlate information from Microsoft 365 using Defender for Identity. So this is a dashboard that helps, manage and protect your on-premise environment. Core features of the EMS suite of offerings is Microsoft Cloud App Security, or MCAS. Okay, this will help identify and combat cybersecurity threats across all of your cloud services through the dashboard. Okay, and it's utilizing a cloud access broker or CASB solution. It gives you visibility to all of your cloud data, and it's just more than Office 365. If you utilize other cloud services, we can get that information as well. You can control how the data travels and put in some policies that maybe, if a teacher is accessing something from a personal device, you can allow them to only use the browser and not copy data out of the browser. Would be a CASB protection you could put in place. The other thing too is you're going to get a view into what we refer to as shadow IT. So it's things that are happening within your organization on information technology that maybe you're not fully aware of, but all of that information will be gleaned into the dashboard because it's going to pull in all of those data points of all the access performed within your environment. The last function is more of an advanced function of the Azure Information Protection. So it's rules-based classification. So you're going to take those Azure Information Protection policies that you have set up to protect the documents that your organization is going to share. Instead of having it manually done, it's going to be done in an automated fashion based on characteristics or how the file is tagged. So maybe there is some PII information within that file. You want it to be automatically classified as maybe read-only, so that no one can forward or print it, things like that. So it's a great function, in that you can do those policies to OneDrive and SharePoint automatically. Okay. So next we're going to talk about Windows 10. So this is the actual desktop or laptop that your users, your students and staff may be using. Okay. There's a bunch of things around Windows 10, a lot of cool things. I'm going to talk about some of the high level stuff I think is going to be beneficial for educational institutions. What is Autopilot? So Autopilot is more, it involves Intune as well to manage the device, but it's a solution to simplify the device's life cycle through automation. So what I mean is, you get every year you're going to replace so many systems in your school system. This is going to help improve that process, where basically you can enroll the devices in Autopilot, and then your staff, once they're enrolled, you can just drop that device off at the teacher's desk, and the teacher opens it up, signs in, and everything gets set up and configured for them automatically. Next part is BitLocker. So BitLocker is the drive level encryption that integrates with the OS to protect your institution's data. So what that means is, if a device was to get stolen or left somewhere and someone takes that hard drive out of that system, they won't be able to put it in their system to read the drive. They won't be able to get into the drive if they don't know the credentials as well. We've talked a little bit about Windows Defender. So there's a Windows Defender, which is now, I believe, they've renamed Microsoft Defender. And what this is it's an enterprise endpoint security that is designed from the ground up to provide the enterprise with the ability to detect, investigate, and respond to advanced threats. So this is going to be a replacement of your traditional antivirus that you would put on your desktop or servers. And it's going to give you the next generation detection and response to protect your end-using computing devices. Sorry about that. The next thing is Windows Hello for Business. So this is going to enable you to increase your security on the device by enabling two-factor authentication via biometrics or PINs. So it's going to be, password and this other function on your device. Okay, so most devices have, fingerprint scanners. If they don't have that, you can use a PIN or maybe even a FIDO key to secure logging into your computers. Application Guard. There's been some enhancements, but traditionally in the past, application is a way to protect your users' browsing activity in an isolated Hyper-V container on the user's machine. So if they were to happen to go to a malicious site, it would just be isolated to that little container and not affect the overall machine. The other thing, Microsoft, they're extending that capability to Office, so that when a user is working on a document, they're in isolated chambers within the machine, so that they don't potentially compromise the whole machine if there's something wrong with that document. Credential Guard is a virtual security to protect credentials when used on a system. So it's a mechanism to allow your organization to protect admin levels credentials from the user, allow them to be functional on their machine. Last big thing is AppV. AppV is virtualized applications that are run from an end user's desktop, but they're not installed on the desktop, they're run from a server. So what that gives you the ability to do is centrally manage and configure those applications so you can make any changes. You don't have to roll out any changes. Whenever they click that icon on their desktop, they're going to get whatever the latest configuration is. And it's going to allow you to deploy applications that may cause conflicts when they're installed locally on a machine with another machine. Now I'm just going to spend a few minutes going over the last few things around educational benefits. So with the A5 license, you get some additional benefits beyond just what we've reviewed. That's, you know, the more than just the Office 365 stuff or the EMS or the Windows 10. Okay. So one of the things that's beneficial is productivity server license. That is, gives you the ability to install Exchange and SharePoint on your on-prem environments for your users that has been licensed with the A5 license. So that'll allow you to, you know, if you're not ready to go to the cloud for some of those workloads, you can still have them deployed on premise and be fully licensed and get the capabilities of that. Another thing is student use benefits. This is where many of the components that when they're licensed for your faculty or staff will give you a ratio to student usage at no cost to your school or educational institution. Microsoft keeps changing it, so I would just look at the latest documentation on what those benefits are. Fast Track. So Fast Track is a service that Microsoft provides as a benefit to your purchase. So it's two-phase. So one is guidance that helps, you know, you can get guidance from either Microsoft or a Fast Track partner that's been certified that will provide you guidance to help you enable a solution yourself and do the configuration yourself through, you know, through workshops and, you know, sessions to meet. And it's, you know, that Fast Track engineer would just help, you know, answer your questions, you know, provide some guidance. Okay. And then the other component of the Fast Track is enablement, and that's two-pronged. Some of the workloads allow you to do that. The Fast Track team will actually do the migrations for you. So one of them is Exchange. They will take that burden of you migrating all those mailboxes to Office 365. They would do it for you. And then there are some of the workloads that they will help enablement. So they won't necessarily do a migration, but they would, you know, support getting your users set up in a solution, and then you would have to provide some support. And the last big educational benefit is Minecraft Education Edition. This is kind of cool. This is a game that they have, but they've crafted it for education and to be a game-based learning platform to enhance the STEM classroom through creativity, collaboration, and problem solving. So this is going to break the mold of traditional classroom learning and maybe engages students in a different way, because they all like to interact with games, and I know Minecraft is a very big part of that. So that's the overview. Just got a couple last things I want to talk to you about, and then we'll have a Q&A. So not sure where to get started for your organization. Some of the things you can look at is a compliance workshop. That is a workshop which includes the Microsoft 365 compliance overview and briefing, technical demonstrations on the various compliance components, and hands-on learning. So it's going to let you get exposed to it and use it yourself. The other thing we do is a Microsoft 365 security briefing. This helps organizations through their journey to the cloud in stride with, you know, and a lot of organizations have security as an afterthought. And what we do is we sit down with you and we go through all of the various components we just talked about and lay it out in a roadmap that works for your institution in rolling them out, because it's a big undertaking to just say, we want to roll it all out now. We're going to help you plan that phased approach over maybe a year or 2 years, whatever works for your institution. And the last thing you can take advantage of is called a threat check. So it is a structured engagement that looks at the Microsoft security products and features that you may be using to see how you're using them and gain insight into any changes that may be needed for your organization to better understand how to protect your organization's data from cyber attacks. And with that, I'll see if there's any questions. Were there any questions?
Yeah, thanks, John. We did have one question come in through the chat. It was answered by our moderator, but I think maybe if you want to give a quick overview of your take on it. The question is, can you review the difference between A5 and other subscriptions? Now, I'll tell you what the answer was, and you can elaborate on it if there's an elaboration there. So Chris, our moderator, answered, M365 includes 3 main pillars: Office 365, A5, EMS, A5, Windows 10, A5. M365 A3 would include the A3 versions of each of those pillars. There are also M365 A3 security and compliance add-ons for existing M365 A3 customers. Do you have anything to add or elaborate on there, John?
Yeah, so that's pretty much the gist of it. So, there are 3 main licenses for the academic world. There's A1 license, the A3, and the A5. Okay, the A1 is just the basic stuff. It's pretty much just all browser based. You're not going to have the fat client available. I mean, unless you bring it to the table through a different licensing, it wouldn't be licensed for that. But there are some other constraints around the A1, smaller mailboxes and some other things like that. But as you go from an A1 to an A3 to an A5, you're going to add more features and functions along the way. And the A5 is sort of the big license that's got everything in it. So that's a good synopsis.
Okay, sounds good. We have another question that appears in the chat here now. Who do we contact to get assistance with the things you talked about in the last slide?
Sure. So I will go back to the last slide. That's a great question. You can call that number that's there, or if you're engaged with a Microsoft rep, you can contact them and they can get a hold of Netrix as well. You can drop an email there, or if you're already engaged with Netrix, you can just talk to any of the people you're engaged with at Netrix and we can get that set up for you.